Well, hello, friends, and welcome once again to another episode of the 360 Experience podcast. I'm your host, Tim Brahim, and I am very much looking forward to my conversation today with a friend of mine, a client of mine, Casey Granston, out of the Pacific Northwest in the Seattle area. To tell you a little bit about Casey, he just recently moved companies. He is with a company now called Lower, and he is a seasoned originator, been in the business for about 15 years. He's held numerous positions within the industry, and he had a pretty darn good year last year in 2024 at $60 million in production, which I think is outstanding in today's market. I think that one of the things that you're going to learn in today's episode with Casey is the power of authenticity and the importance of managing your energy, especially in this industry that comes with plenty of highs and lows throughout the week. I really admire the work that Casey has been doing on himself as a human being and how that is translated into his success as an originator. And you're going to hear us talk about that link between the inside job that is the work that we all have to do on our mindset, on our energy, how we manage it, and the manifestation of results in our business life. We're going to talk about how he aligns himself with financial advisors, which I think is a very important conversation. We're going to talk about some very interesting, cool things that he's doing with his realtor partners to add value to them. And we're going to also talk about how he filters out people that he's not meant to work with and kind of sidesteps those dysfunctional relationships that we all experience in the origination business that can really drain us. Finally, and I really want to encourage you to listen to the entire episode because we're going to go into the personal realm in the second half. And I think that that's going to be where there's a lot of meat. His relationship with his wife, his relationship with his children, and some very cool ideas of things that you can be doing to fortify those important relationships in your personal life as well. So sit back. Be ready to enjoy this episode of the 360 Experience podcast, which is sponsored by the Loan Atlas. If you have not checked out the Loan Atlas, it is an absolutely fantastic online coaching platform that is backed by the finest and most giving faculty that the industry has ever assembled. I'm fortunate to be one of those faculty members, and we are helping loan originators all across the country right now grow personally and professionally, and it's something you definitely want to take a look at, and you can check in the show notes for the link to the Loan Atlas as well as how to schedule a demo where we'd be happy to take a bit of time and get on Zoom with you and walk you through the platform so you can see it. If you are not a subscriber to this show, please subscribe. The more subscribers we have, the better. If you like this episode, give us a like on Spotify or Apple or YouTube, and certainly forward it on to somebody else who you think could benefit from the wonderful content in my conversation with Casey Granston. So without further ado, I welcome Casey Granston to the 360 Experience podcast. What is happening, bro?
Nothing much. We're back from the retreat after a couple days and really, excited for what's to come.
Thanks for wearing your neon. I really appreciate it. It really, really excites me.
Of course. I know you gave me a lot of shit in LA, so I wanted to bring out my brightest shirt that I have.
Yeah, for those of you who don't know Casey, which is probably just about everyone other than a few friends that are listening, in the disc profile, Casey is a high I, like the highest I that you can get. Which means he's a very social person. We're going to talk about that a little bit in our conversation today about how he leverages that in his business. But high I's are notorious for wearing bright colors. So he's also a terrific golfer, and I'm gonna figure out a way to weave golf into this conversation because it would be a crime not to. So let's just start with you giving us a brief background. How long have you been in the business for? What's your current position that you hold? What was your best year? Why don't we tackle that?
Yeah, so been in the industry for 15 years, kind of held every job, bank, broker. Just switched companies about a month and a half ago over to Lower. I went from a regional vice president to a branch manager. So my best year, we did a little over 150 million, about 300 units. And during COVID, so a lot of refis, a lot of purchases in those numbers. We did back to back of that number.
How'd you do in 2024? I know it was definitely a lower year than the COVID years, but what was your volume like last year?
Yeah, we did just under 60 million and a little over 100 units. I think like 108 maybe.
I mean, that's still outstanding. You're averaging, nine deals a month, and nice size loan amounts up in the Pacific Northwest. So I want to dive into a topic right out of the gate that we talked briefly about, and maybe we'll go a little bit deeper on it. We talked briefly about it in a mastermind call that we did in Leadership 360 maybe 45 days ago, and I really liked what you had to say. An approach that you're taking to presenting to realtors and to borrowers right now that I think is very valuable for people to hear. I would define it as a couple of initiatives. One is that you are being true to yourself and leveraging your talents. And two is you are weeding out people early in the process that are not meant to work with you, whether it be a referral partner or a client. Tell us a little bit about the strategy, and maybe you can even give us some scripting around it.
Yeah. I think to answer that question, I have to go back to probably a couple of years ago when I did the signature program with you guys. And, I would say a quick plug, if you haven't thought about the signature program with L360, literally it is a life-changing experience. And it's very hard to describe it in that way, but it has helped me immensely in my career, my personal business, my personal life. And so, through that, getting very clear on who I was, I think was super important. When I went down to Costa Rica with you guys really helped me, uncover a lot of that stuff for me. And one of that, when we were in LA to kind of wrap up the L360, group was you guys helped me kind of find my true passion and who I truly was. I remember having a conversation with you and you'd be like, you're really kind of a natural educator and coach. And what happened for me was I started understanding my authentic self and I use core principles. So it's education, coaching, transparency. And if I can go into that and be my authentic self in that, I'm going to win energetically. You guys kind of talked about, finding your genius zone and these kind of things. And I really took those three things as my genius zone. I'm an open book to a lot of people. So if you want to know something about me, I'm going to tell you. And sometimes I tell you, even if you don't want to know. And so how I've kind of translated that into business is, in the Northwest, we have a lot of tech. We have a lot of buyers that are shopping, right? They have access to technology. They have access to every lender out there. A lot of my clients are A-paper. And so we get shopped multiple times, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 times. And what I was finding out was earlier in my career was I was just getting super frustrated with these people. I was like, well, hopefully they don't shop. Close my eyes, cross my fingers. Shit, they shop me. Right. Or I'm going to show them value. And then over time, they're going to want to work with me. Well, what I found out was that if I can lead in education, coaching, transparency, like I'm going to win energetically and I'm going to win the transaction. Right. So I kind of like taken out call it the end result of expectations, because most people are like, if the client uses me, then I win. Right. I win the deal, right? And that's how we're all looking at it. And that takes that ebbs and flow up and down of our business, of our day. And I was finding myself being like, not happy, kind of depressed, not giving myself grace. And it led to, which you helped me discover, not being enough. Right? Not being enough. And like, I think this industry does that to a lot of people of, it's great April, what's May? Great May, what's June? Great 22, what's 23? And what I was able to do was able to find that if I can change the approach that I take to clients, to realtors, to everybody, to feed my energy, then I win. Right? Yeah, I might not win the deal. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I want to, I'm sorry for interrupting you. I want to synthesize this just a little bit. So when I think this is a very important point that you make, what you're attempting to do here is remove the losses from the equation. And the losses come from the frame. So to your point, if the frame is, if they say yes to me, I win. If they say no to me, I lose, then you're setting yourself up for a negative energetic experience probably more than 50% of the time, because it's a competitive market, right? So if we're holding it in our consciousness that a no is a loss, then we are running the risk of there being a negative energetic experience. So I want to ask you, let's unpack just slightly, and then I want to get you back on track here with like what you're saying to clients. So hold tight, listeners, because we're going to go there. But I want to unpack energy a little bit, because I think it's so important. When you refer to your energy, can you go a little deeper with that? Like what specifically is the experience that you're looking to have, and what experience are you looking to avoid?
Yeah. So for me there was a lot of days that I just was tired, energetically low. Right. And I would walk through the door and my two girls would want dad. And I just couldn't be a great dad each day I wasn't a great dad, if you will. And it was because I was depleted. I was losing. Clients were shopping me and I was tight. That was like my identity. Right. My business, my income is tied to that stuff. And so when I'm losing and I'm not winning how I think I should, well, now I'm in these emotional roller coasters, or we have hard conversations. And 22 and 23 were very hard years for a lot of us, 24 even. And so like I was, with the help of you guys, it really helped me to understand I don't necessarily have to like have the result to win. Because a result is an expectation, and an expectation is something that should happen. And if it doesn't, then it's a loss. And I wanted to really kind of change that direction to feed my energy. And so again, finding out who I truly was. I love to educate. I love to coach, and I'm transparent. And when I do that, or I coach people, my energy starts going up. I could feel my aura. I could feel like just a change in just the kind of like my soul, if you will, the fire inside me. And I started coaching more LOs and started feeling that. And then I kind of switched that over to clients, and I started feeling better energy. And then when I come in home, I might not have more deals, but I was energetically better. I wasn't as tired. I was ready to go play with my kids. I was ready to go do these kind of things. And then I've like kind of hacked it throughout the day of finding out the other piece of energy of working out, meditating, golfing, when I do have bad days, because it's mortgage. Like it's just because I do these kind of things doesn't mean like I'm always going to have high energy, but it was understanding what gives me energy and what starts taking away energy from me, and rebuilding my business around that.
So what I'm hearing you say is that when you're coaching, when you're transparent, and when you're educating, this raises your energy. You've identified that as something that is very fulfilling for you. And what I'm hearing you say is that you have relinquished the attachment to the result of doing that as being the win or the loss based upon the result. So let's go a little deeper here. When you're educating, coaching, and you're transparent with people, what's your frame, your mindset around the result? Like, how are you looking at that? Like the person still shops you and they don't go with you. How are you avoiding feeling shitty as a result of that?
Yeah. And this is like a great transition into like how my first call goes with clients, right? So if we're talking, I'm like, hey, Tim, really the best way to start this conversation is tell me a little bit about where you're at in the process. Tell me like kind of where you're shopping, your price point, your down payment. From that, I'll ask you some questions. We'll go through my process as a team, who we are, who we're not, because at the end of the day, this is your journey to home ownership, not mine. Right. And so you use me, great. That's how I get paid. And if not, that's totally fine too. You're one step closer to finding your loan officer to buy your home. And what I found out with that was that, again, I don't control if they use me or not. I could say the perfect thing all the time, have the best scripting, have everything perfect, and they still don't use me. Well, that's a fleeting feeling. So I even talk about to the client what my core principles are, right? I say like, well, what are you looking for in LL? They'll go through that. And I'm like, well, my core principles are education, coaching, and transparency. I'm going to win this conversation because I'm going to educate you on the process. I'm going to coach you to make the best decision. And I'm going to be transparent who we are and who we're not. So you can make the best decision for you. And so if that's the case, I'm going to win energetically because that's who I am. And I'm going to pour out into that client, and then they can make their best decision from there. And I truly do not care if they use me, because I know that my authentic self is that person, and I'm going to win. It's just a matter of when, not if. And if I go in this line and I keep going in that way, I'm going to attract the people that want education, coaching, transparency. They want someone on their side in that realm. I'm not a fit for everybody, and that's okay.
So I want to call to the attention of the listener a very important core principle of life, and we talked about this just earlier this week at the Masters Retreat for L360, which is our suffering comes from our attachment to the outcome. And what I'm hearing you say is that you're not attached to the outcome. You're attached to being you. You're attached to embodying these three core principles, and that you have decided to play a different game. And the game is no longer I write the deal and I lock the loan. The game that you're playing is I'm true to me, and there will be people that see the value in what I bring, and those are perfect people for me to work with, and it's going to be fun to work with them. And there will be people that are not going to see my value, and I'm going to let go and surrender those people to somebody else because they're not meant to work for me. Is that accurate?
Yes, very.
So, what's the result been since? How long have you been doing this for, and what has the result been both internally and externally for you?
So, somewhat of this version has been a couple years, I would say, through L360. Like 2024, for instance, I really went in this way. It's the least amount of leads I've had in 5, 6, 7 years. But my business went from, I think we did 35 million in 23 to 60 million last year with less leads.
Mm.
Energetically, I feel more balanced. I feel fuller. I feel more fulfilled. I feel like I'm really tapping into my true like inner self and my soul. I feel like I'm, most days like a great dad and a great husband and a great friend and LO and manager and all those stuff. Feels like I'm winning the day more because I'm tying it to something that where I used to tie it to stuff that I couldn't control. I'm tying it to stuff that I can.
Yeah, I love that. There was a presentation that I did earlier this week on implementation. I'm sure you remember. And there was a slide where I talked about framing and how we frame our goals. And I'm paraphrasing because I don't have it memorized, but the goal that I had written as a sample for all of you was something along the lines of, I'm going to cross-sell and introduce myself to all real estate agents on every transaction, knowing that the ones that I am meant to work with will connect with me and we will have a successful business relationship together. That's a little bit about what we're talking about here. It's a very different frame than I'm going to cross-sell all the listing agents on every loan. Because when you frame it like that, then there's this win or loss as to whether or not you're successful with it. But by putting out that declaration that the people that I am meant to work with will find resonance with me and we will connect at a deep level and it'll be a meaningful relationship, is a surrendered state of, and if they don't, that's okay too. I'd rather steer clear of that person now rather than have it be a grind by trying to pursue them and having them hand out 3 business cards and all of that. So what do you feel the result? What happens when somebody doesn't find resonance with your 3 core principles and they still grind you and rate shop you? Or if it's a real estate agent, they still talk about the fact that they need to pass out 3 business cards or they want you to pay for half of their Zillow leads or whatever the case may be. How do you relate to that situation when it happens?
I mean, it's going to happen, right? Like, I mean, I think there's enough clients like that. You could have perfect pitch, perfect stuff. I could say all this and I still get shopped, right? Like I ask for a win there, but like that still happens. It gets to a point where I either decide, hey, this is too much for me and I'm going to bow out, or I'm okay losing the deal, and I'm not going to let it affect my energy in the sense that, okay, hey, you're shopping me. Hey, here's what we can do. But I'm going to, again, separate the result from it. But through this, like, I moved in a different direction, and I think it's like mutual on a lot of sides of my realtors using me and not, and kind of clearing house, if you will, with my referral partners. And now I have a chance to set expectations up front. When a lot of these relationships are years in the past, and I didn't have that expectation. I didn't have that, like, hey, here's who I am, here's who I'm not. Right? What are you looking for in a partner? What are you looking for in a lender? Like, how can I help you? And really being mutually, on the same page with them, and setting a clear, defined, like, hey, we're on the same page. Like, it's one of the things I used to do when I like hired people, is like, hey, here's my non-negotiables. Here's our culture. Here's what we want. If you do these things, like, this is just not going to be a fit for us. Don't tell me what I want to hear. This is more of your decision, accepting what we're going to be, because we're going to find out in 3 months, right? We're going to find out if you are this person or if you're not. And so let's get on the same page. Let's set proper expectations so we can go forward. That's with the client. That's with realtors. That's with all this kind of stuff. And so it's just allowed me to like be very more upfront, again, transparent. And, again, and it's not perfect, like, people are still going to shop me multiple times and I'm going to still lose. But the most of it goes away.
Yeah, I think that the beauty of what you're sharing here is that a lot of times I find that in sales, we underestimate, especially when the product that we're selling is us, which is the case here in mortgages, we can greatly underestimate the importance of the relationship with ourselves. And if we're constantly contorting and trying to figure out a way to get somebody to say yes to us, even if it doesn't align with our core values and the way that we do business, it definitely has a very direct impact on how we feel about us, if we're compromising our values. The other part of it is, so the inverse to that is that if we are staying true to us, then it has a very opposite impact on our relationship with ourselves. We are showing up in a way to where we're proud of ourselves. We're showing up in a way to where we like who we are. When we like who we are, not in an arrogant way, in a humble way, we like who we are because we're staying true to us, then we show up differently and we become much more magnetic. And I think that you could kind of use the analogy of dating here quite well, right? So like, if you're out there, if you're single and you're looking for a mate, and you're trying to say all the right things on a date, and some of them are true and some of them are not true, and you're kind of selling the person, you're not as attractive as you are when you are truly authentically you. People are drawn to us when they sense that level of inner confidence, that level of inner self-respect. So I'd love for you to comment on that. Do you feel like you're seeing people that are more drawn to you? Is that an aspect of this, that people are more drawn to you because you're staying true with who you are?
Yeah. And it's easier to make connections for me. Like, I haven't really had a hard time making connections. Again, the high, like, I'm just going to go out and I'm okay in social settings and these kind of things and making connections. But it's just like, I guess being confident is, for me, is this thing that's like, it's been different throughout my life. Like, again, dating and these kind of things. I'm so true to who I am and so confident in my energy that it doesn't feel like I'm trying. I'm just showing up and being me. And that is like, I'm not wasting energy. I'm not like, I bartended for a lot of times and I worked with a lot of bartenders. I was a young bartender, and it was like, I was playing this chameleon a lot early in my career. I'm playing this chameleon side. Well, I got to be this for this realtor. I got to be this for this realtor. This realtor is going to show up, and like, I'm constantly changing who I am, for them, thinking this is what they want. Right. And now it's like, no, I'm just going to be me. And if you like me and you want to work with me, awesome. Let's go do it. Let's go crush the world together. And if not, that's okay too. Right. Like, I just, there's how many realtors in the world and how many financial advisors and how much to do business. We don't need thousands and thousands of referral partners. Sometimes you need 10, sometimes you need 20, maybe 30 people Would you rather work with 30 people that truly like you and truly like are attracted to your energy and who you are, and vice versa? Or 30 people that might produce higher, but they're just a constant strain on you? And I've done both. I've had awesome referral partners, that totally get me, and then some that don't, and I just grind with them and I'm drained. Like just totally drained energetically, totally not fulfilled. Right. And I assume it's the same way on their end. But again, for me, it always comes down to the result and tying it to the expectation of what I want. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that what we're talking about here is, I think it's not arguable that everybody listening would prefer to work with people that see their value. I think that that's a given, right? Like, I mean, that would be an easier path to work with people that see your true, authentic value, who you show up as in the world. And it's difficult when we're working with people that we're trying to constantly figure out what they want to hear. And we have to abort who we are to try to say the right things to get them to want to work with us. So, but it starts with, and this is the part that I want the listener to really understand, it starts with what you've done, is that you've taken a step back and you've said, who am I? Who do I want to be in the world? Where do I want to put myself, and how do I want to show up to where I'm honoring me, to where I feel good about me, and then not deviating or compromising, and being willing to let go of the result of the quote unquote win, knowing that some people are never going to see your value. But the thing is that how could you expect them to see your value if you're not clear on it? And if you're not putting it out there in an unwavering fashion. So what you've done is you've reverse engineered this. You've said, I'm not going to try to tell people what I think they want to hear. I'm going to tell people who I am, and I'm going to trust that the people that see the value that I bring will be the people that say yes to me, and I will work with them, and the results will follow. So we have talked a little bit in passing here about DISC, and I want to make sure that people understand what DISC is. So, and then I'm going to ask you to share a little bit about who you are. And in that presentation that I delivered earlier this week, I posed a question to all of you. I said, what is the game that you can choose to play that is one that gives you an unfair competitive advantage versus your competition? How can you change this game that you're playing? Like, what are your gifts? What are your talents? How can you leverage them? And how can you create a game to where others are going to fall short because you're leveraging who you are? So DISC is an acronym. D, I, S, and C are the four letters. A high D is someone who is driven, type A personality. A high I is somebody who is extroverted, very connective, very social, a good networker. An S is someone who's a support person, someone who doesn't want to be the chief, is fully accepting of being the Indian that supports the chief. And then a C is somebody who is kind of in a controlling state, but I don't mean that in a negative way. They're really analytical, really thorough, and very methodical in their approach. You are a high I, like to a T, in every way, shape, and form. So you're an extroverted, gregarious, outgoing personality, flamboyant, all of these things. So how do you leverage this? Because I think that you're describing a situation where you're being true to who you are. So tell us a little bit about your orientation to DISC, what you learned about yourself, and how you're then taking that out in the world authentically to win and create a game that you have a competitive advantage.
Yeah, and I had no clue what DISC was when we were sitting in Costa Rica, and you were asking questions, and Tommy Blateau went around the room, because I can point out anybody here. He's like, look at Casey and his fucking hypercolor shirt over there. I know he's a high I. And I had hypercolor shirts like every day that week. And I was like, oh my God, what does this mean? And when we went through it, right? So like, I'm always going to see the positive in anything. I'm always going to see something that I can look forward to, no matter what happens. Like, I'm just an internal optimist, right? The market could be crashing, I'll spin it, right? And so, and I get my energy from people, right? So like understanding this, like I was moving out of being one-on-ones. I was moving away from the client consoles. And then understanding that I get my energy from people, I started doing one-on-ones on Zoom again on every call, meeting people face to face, right? Understanding that like other high eyes are going to want me to compliment their shirt or their flowery dress or their bright colors. And if you walk around and see someone wearing a really bright color, compliment them and watch their smile light up because they want that interaction. Right. So for me is like just being around people and like even leaning into where I'm a member of a golf course and a country club and like going there and being around people and making sure that I'm like talking with other people, because again, it's going to feed who I am. It's going to feed my energy, right? Having people over, at the house for dinner or, going out and just being in public. Right. And so these things for me was like, again, my unfair advantage, like I don't really look at it in that way. Again, it's just who I am. And so like, I just going to continue to just dive deep into who I am and be that person. And some of that is being like, I've made so many mistakes in my life, like personally on the work side, on the golf course, on everything. Like I'm not afraid of it. I don't think it defines me. I think it makes it me who I am. I wouldn't change anything that's kind of come, in my past, because it's all made me to this person today. Like I'll share, like we want to kind of talk about golf and I'll share it. This is kind of a toot-tone horn, but like, it's not meant to be that way. Like last year I'm playing in the club championship and I have the lead and I make back-to-back bogeys and I am literally like almost having a panic attack. There's like 60 people watching and I just lay down on the grass next to the green, like just lay down and start breathing. And I don't care what people think. And I just say to myself, I'm like, okay, right now you have a chance to win this tournament. Like you might win, you might lose. Who cares? The next 5 holes, what can you learn about this round of golf? So the next time you're in this position, you will be better. So like taking the result away, and it just like totally calmed me down. I stand back up, I look around and people are like, probably like, what the fuck is this guy doing? He's like laying on the ground in the club championship. And I'm just like, it is just who I am. Like I'm okay. I'm vulnerable in the position. And I end up going down and I make a couple birdies coming in and I win the tournament because I just kind of took like the result away from what I was looking for.
Yeah, that's a great story to support everything that we're talking about here. In that moment, what I heard you say is that you weren't going to be concerned about anything that anybody else thought, that you were going to focus on the thing that you knew you needed to feed you, which is to take this respite, to find your breath, to detach yourself from the outcome, to settle your nervous system in an intense situation. And how true is that when, it comes to pursuing referral partners as an example? So let's come back now and talk about referral partner relationships. I know that there was a time, and I haven't checked in with you on this in a while, but I had given you, at the retreat in Costa Rica, I had given you a strategy, which was these 1 to 10 questions where, you ask the client to rate for you on a scale of 1 to 10, their relationship with their accountant, their financial planner, their real estate agent, et cetera. And depending upon the answer that they give you, it's either an opportunity for you to make an outbound referral to a preferred referral partner of yours. If they give that person a low score, then you introduce them to a CPA that you know. Or if they give that person a high score, you get an opportunity to ask them if they'd mind making an introduction. So you might have a warm referral to a new potential referral partner relationship. I remember you calling me one day and said, this is like shooting fish in a barrel. Like, I mean, this is working extremely well. Tell me a little bit about that. And then tell me about what you're doing right now to gain relationships with prospective referral partners and what the strategy is and where you're putting yourself, in an effort to connect with people in the way that is authentic for you.
Yeah. I mean, we implemented the, your perfect loan process and even the financial reviews with our clients. And the CPA one is hard because there's just not a lot of, I haven't really tackled the CPA issue of like, there's just not a lot out there and there's not a lot of people that have bandwidth. But the financial advisor one has been so key. So last year, when we do financial reviews for our clients, again, it's about a 21 question that we just, once they commit to us, we go through your, like, rank your financial advisor on a scale of 1 to 10, right? Like most give a 4 or 5. A lot of them don't even have any. And it's a way for us to give referrals out to financial advisors in that realm. Last year, I think we gave up, again, it was a little over 30, leads to financial advisors. And now I have 3 sending me business.
Wow, that's huge.
And it was all kind of naturally. Like I wasn't going out and like pounding the phones, but like honestly, like for people that want to grow in the financial advising space, doing this financial review where you're asking questions, it's an easy lead into, giving out leads to financial advisors, calling a financial advisor. And so like when I was asking people who their financial advisor were, and I would call them, that's how I got these 3. And I called them and I'm like, hey, how do you like to receive leads? Like, what? I'm like, well, we do this financial review and we have 10 people that don't have a financial advisor right now. I need someone to send them to them. Like, what's your minimum that you'll take? What's your maximum? Like, what's your ideal client? And how do you like to receive leads? They're blown away. Like, that's the easy, like, yeah, of course I want to work with you. Like, and it's a way that really where we've spun it even more is that if when we're working with these realtors is when that question with a financial advisor or excuse me, the client, and they come back and I don't have a financial advisor, like, oh my God, Tim has an amazing financial advisor, you're a realtor. I'm going to connect you after the call with Tim again, so he can connect you with the real financial advisor. And so that was like one of those things where I'm taking, instead of me being the hero in the situation, I'm giving it back to the realtor. And I can do it with the insurance agent. I can do it with the CPA. I can do it with a financial advisor and have the realtor then now sending it out to their vendors.
So, okay, so this is an interesting twist. And I remember you talking about this in our mastermind about 45 days ago, that you are, did you not, am I correct in saying that you actually were calling the client at closing and asking them to provide a review for your realtors? Was that you who had said that?
Yeah.
Okay, tell us a little bit about that. This is so powerful. I love this strategy.
Yeah. So this goes into like, it's again, some of my cold call scripts with my realtors like that. Like I'm a weird that I like cold calling. I've gamified it. I think it's fun, in a weird way. But one of the things that we do for our realtor partners is that once the loan closes, right, and I've gotten away from this a little bit, but once the loan closes, we call the client a week after closing, right? And we're saying, hey, we know Tim did an amazing job, right, for you. And you're so happy. And they usually start talking, oh, yeah, he was great. Da, 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 da. Well, Tim is trying to grow his business through Zillow or Google. It would mean a lot to him if you can give him a 5-star review. I'm going to send you a link after I get off the call that you could fill this out, right? And then the second thing is I know Tim, a lot of his business is done through referrals. Right. And it's really hard to ask for personal referrals. So I'm going to ask for him. Do you know anybody, maybe in the next 6 months or next 2 years that might be willing, wanting to buy and want to talk with him? I know that would mean so much to him.
So I want to really point something out. I mean, if you take nothing away from this conversation, implement this. This is giant. Okay. What you're first of all doing is that you are helping your realtor partners generate reviews and generate referrals. What you're also doing is you're making the act of asking for a referral easier on you. And the reason that I say that is because it's hard, as you pointed out, to ask for a referral. Typically, the way that it's done is the originator calls and says, hey, do you mind giving me a review? And then, hey, do you know anybody else who might be able to be interested in buying a home that you'd be willing to introduce me to? That's a tougher script because it's much more difficult for us to ask for things for ourselves. But it's a much simpler script to ask for something on behalf of somebody else. So what are the realtors saying when you are able to generate a review for them so they don't have to do it? And what are they saying when you are in some cases, I would imagine saying, hey, I got a referral from you or for you from this client of ours?
Yeah. I mean, again, like the response is great and no one's doing it. Right. So it's this thing that again, on the cold calling or going out and talking about this stuff, it's like, again, shooting fish in a barrel. Like, right. Like I looked at this and used your process, but it's like, I can't give them one-to-one relationships, right? Like I can't give them a lead when they give me a lead. So how can I get them more business? How can I add more value to them? And that's what all this stuff is. Like they love it because they're like, oh, I don't have to do this. I don't have to do my marketing. I don't have to reach out to these clients. I don't have to do XYZ. And you're going to help. And then you're going to give me people to then refer out to my vendors. Like, why would I not want to work with you? Right. You're hitting them 3 ways that you're going to help them get business. Just because they're sending one client to you or how many clients that is.
Yeah. When the person, let's go back, let's regress for a moment to the financial planner situation for a second. If you ask the client in that financial review to rate their current financial planner or financial advisor relationship on a scale of 1 to 10, and they give the person a 9 or a 10, what do you do with that information? This isn't somebody who needs a financial advisor. They have one already and they're very happy with the person.
Yeah. I mean, again, just like your script, right? It's, oh, that's awesome. We consider ourselves debt managers. They're asset managers. We want to work in accordance with them. We're always looking for better, financial advisors, for our clients as well. Do you think you can send an intro to your financial advisor so I can, one, make sure that we're doing the right things for you, in accordance with how they want to manage your assets, but also in case there's maybe an opportunity that I can send my clients to.
And what's their typical response?
Of course.
Now, let me tweak that for you and just for you to consider as an alternative. I'm not, and I've experienced this a lot, even in the context of Leadership 360, and you've been kind enough to refer a couple of clients to us this year, which I greatly appreciate. We have analyzed very closely the difference of a powerful referral versus an average referral. So when you refer someone, you or anybody else refers someone to us for coaching, if it's done in the means of just sending out an email saying, hey, Joe, I want to introduce you to Tim Brahim. You should consider being coached by him, blah, blah, blah. We then immediately respond. And I would say more than 50% of the time, maybe 75% of the time, it's crickets. The person just doesn't respond to the email, okay? Because it's kind of a weak referral. I mean, an introduction via email, in my mind, is not the most powerful mechanism for referring someone to me. But if you look at it from a different perspective, and this is how I used to do it with financial advisors and CPAs. I would, instead of saying, hey, do you mind sending an email, which they may or may not send, which they may or may not craft as powerfully as you would like, which that person may or may not respond to, I actually like to ask the question of, do you think it would be a good idea for me to pick up the phone and call your financial advisor and introduce myself and set up a time to get together with them to talk about how we can mutually benefit each other and supporting each other in each other's business? The client says yes. Now I pick up the phone and I call you, Casey, the financial advisor, and I introduce myself and I say, we have a mutual client by the name of Julie Wykes. Julie and I just got off the phone. I asked her to rate your services on a scale of 1 to 10. She gave you a 10. She told me all about your existing relationship and how you guys have known each other for 20 years and how you've done a tremendous job in managing their assets. And what I shared with Julie is that I'm always looking to align myself with people who are outstanding at managing the asset side of the balance sheet, because I'm the one who manages the liability side. And she thought it would be a good idea for me to call you and to set a time for us to get together for a cup of coffee or for lunch in an effort to just get to know each other and see if there's a mutual benefit in a potential relationship. It's much tougher for you at that point to say no to me, because you're saying no to your client, Julie, who asked you to pick up the phone and call the financial advisor, which is an authentically true statement. All I did was just re-engineer it and say, do you think it would be a good idea? And so long as Julie, in this case, the borrower, says, yes, I think it would be a good idea, now you have your in to call the person and have a much more active engagement in the introduction process than a email that may or may not land in someone's inbox and at a time that they can address it. So just something to consider. Any comment on that before we pivot to another topic?
It's way better.
Okay. Well,
obviously that's great. That's great. Yeah, of course.
You're kind of trapped. I used to call it the trapping script because I'm trapping you into having to meet with me. It's pretty tough for you when your client just gave you a 10 to say no. I mean, you're not going to have a canned excuse to that typically. You're going to be caught off guard. You're going to be like, yeah, okay. And like, okay, well, great. How does Tuesday look at 2:00? I'll swing by your office. What kind of coffee you want me to bring in or whatever, right? So I want to pivot to golf. I'm going to hit you with an interesting question. I'm going to brag on you a little bit, first of all, because it is very much deserving. You're an outstanding golfer. I mean, you're not a good golfer. You're a terrific golfer. It's a pleasure to play golf with you because it's always nice to watch someone who is in their genius. For those of you that golf, I'll tell you a quick funny story. We were playing golf. I know you know where I'm going with this. We're playing golf at Aviera Golf Course in Carlsbad, California, before one of our master's retreats. And I'm in a group in front of Casey. And I'm lining up my 30-foot putt on the putting green, on the front side of the putting green. And a ball comes flying over my left shoulder and lands on the green 15 feet in front of me, between me and the pin. And I'm like, holy shit, who hit that shot? And I'm like looking around at the side fairway over on the other hole. There's nobody over there. And I look back and there's four guys like 300 yards back in the middle of the fairway on this par five. And it ends up being Casey, who hit driver off the deck from 300 yards and flew the green and almost killed me in the process. But I mean, that's how good of a golfer he is. Guy hits driver off the deck. For those of you that don't play golf, that means he had a driver without a tee, which is not something that most people would ever even attempt to do, much less hit it 300 yards. But the question is this. So I think personally, and we've never had this discussion, that golf is a metaphor for life in so many ways. And I'm wondering what the game of golf has taught you about your business. Does anything come to mind?
We definitely haven't had this conversation, but for me, I've now been able to like correlate the two of results. So like when I was playing a lot when I was younger in college, like I was a hothead, frustrated. I wanted to win. I wanted to play well. And when it didn't go my way, I didn't know how to handle it. And I got pissed. And I go back to like early in my career, kind of same way. If people shot me, I'd get frustrated. I was kind of a dick, LO, like with people. And what I've learned is that, and now, my golf coach gave me this in 22, when I was 22 to 25, maybe. It was, what can you learn from this round of golf? Not what you shoot, not where the ball goes. What can you learn from each shot, each swing? And I got away from it in a lot, and I implemented it last year, and I had a pretty successful. Again, I'm not playing a ton of golf anymore, here and there, with life and kids and work. But what it did was I got back to what can I learn? And that's what I feel like I've done with the business side, is like detaching myself from the result, the expectation, and what can I learn about this experience? What can I do that truly fills me up? I love like education coaching, right? That's right into learning about golf. And so I've been able to, really get to a place of, there's things that I do, like where I'm out on the golf course and I'll take breaths where I just stop in the middle of the fairway and I do like a 360 and I just breathe and look at like how grateful I am that I get to play golf, or how grateful my life is, right? Go into the business side, like how grateful I am that someone even trusts me on their mortgage for $1 million that I'm going to give them financing on. I mean, I know that sounds like cliche and like, all that kind of stuff, but like truly there's a gratefulness that someone's choosing me, that I get to educate and coach and be their person that helps them buy a home. And on the golf course, I get to play golf. I get to be out in nature. I get to do this thing that is a challenge every day. And there's something that I can learn every day, right? Like, for me is like what you guys have given me. And I say, you, Scott, Julie, and, L360 is like this caught a newfound look on life, right? Where I know I'm going to give myself grace on a daily basis, because I'm never going to be a perfect person in any aspect. there are going to be days that I am, and both are okay. There's going to be days that I'm shitty golfer and a great golfer. There's going to be days that I'm a shitty dad, a great dad. Both are okay as long as I'm trying to get better. And I think that's where I've been able to correlate this is that, okay, if I go shoot 82, that's okay. I can go shoot, 68 the next day, right? There's days that I yell at my kids. It's not the best look for me, and I don't want to be that way. But there's days that I'm such a present, great dad. And like for me is like this correlation of the two is like, I don't have a result, and where the result, the expectation, I feel is like where people lead into the I'm not enough. I want more. Again, just grind on themselves and they beat themselves up. I heard it a ton, even in, the master's retreat. A lot of people just are so hard on themselves because they have this like thought of who they should be and what they want to be. And like, yeah, I want to get better. I want to grow. I want to continue to do this, but I know that every day I'm not going to be that person, and it's okay.
So I don't know if you saw the post that I made this morning. First of all, I'm really glad I asked you this question because that's a really, really important and beautiful answer is how can you look at every experience that you're having in your business from the perspective of whether it's a quote unquote successful result or not. How can I learn from this? What can I do differently next time? I mean, everything is just like a classroom of learning. This is a much more productive approach to being successful in your business and your life. I made a post this morning that said, don't forget that your body will follow your mind. And this is why it's very important to have dominion over our thoughts. So if you're having negative self-deprecating thoughts on a consistent basis, then you're going to respond physically in a negative way. I mean, that's really what energy is. But if you can spin it and say, gosh, man, I'm so lucky that I have 9 people in my pipeline right now, or 4 people in my pipeline, or 2 people in my pipeline that trust me. Wow, how blessed am I that somebody would put their financial picture in my hands? That is going to spawn different behaviors on a physical level from you and the way that you show up. Or another frame could be that if somebody doesn't choose to work with you after you've authentically displayed your core values and done your very best to educate them and coach them and show up with authenticity in your case, and they choose to go somewhere else, you could also frame that as, wow, I'm really fortunate that I didn't end up engaging in a long-term relationship with somebody who doesn't see my value. I'm really glad that I steered clear of that relationship because we've all been engaged in massively dysfunctional relationships in our career over time that drain us energetically. So you could certainly hold it that way. You've talked about your kids. You've talked about being a husband. I want you to share what I think is one of the greatest implementations on a personal level that anybody has done in the L360 program. And it involves a shoebox in your kids. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. That was, I believe it was me and Julie putting this thing together, and we came up with it in Costa Rica. But going into Costa Rica, I knew I don't want to say broken, but I knew I needed to work on stuff. And a lot of that was just being present for my kids and uncovering that I'm not enough, right? And I'm always trying to do more in all aspects of my life. And through that, we were kind of coming up with our daily habits of how to be, like, in my mind, a better father, more or less. And what I did was when I came home is I got this shoebox, and I had my mom, because I'm not crafty at all. And no offense to my wife, we're both not very crafty or artistic. My mom puts white paper over the shoebox and puts a hole in it. And what I did is I had my daughters, and I think they're 2 and 5 at the time, 3 and 5 at the time, color the shoebox, put their pictures on it, color it, design it. And then every day I came home at 5-ish, right around there, I would take the phone and I'd put it in the shoebox. And that means that if I had to go get the shoe, or I needed my phone for some reason, I had to look at my kids' pictures and their design, that I was going to separate my time at home with them to get the phone to use it. And what it did was, and I even took my voicemail, and this was your scripting. Hey, you've reached Casey. It's, if you caught me between 5:30 and 8, I'm with my family, I'll get back to you right after that or the next day. And I was so afraid to do that because of the judgment, or like people won't work with me or these kind of things. And the response was like 100-fold the other way. I love your voicemail. That's so awesome that you do that. Oh, I hear you're with your kids. No worries. Right. And there's always an exception to the rule, but like, and then at the end, like, we did this for 6 months. At the end, it was like 4 months in, I'm coming home and my daughter August is like, you didn't put your phone in the shoebox, Dad. Put your phone in the shoebox. I'm like, okay. Or Max being like, Dad, don't get your phone. Leave it in the shoebox. So it was like so great because it allowed me to connect with them and share the experience with them.
So I just had this thought that would be really cool would be like, what if, by the way, I'm not remotely surprised that the responses that you received on your voicemails were positive, because the thing that we tend to forget is the very things that we want to work on in our personal life, like life balance, having better boundaries, being more present with our family, et cetera, are ubiquitous. Everybody wants to work on those things. And you, in fact, have an opportunity to be a teacher to your referral partners and to your borrowers by displaying something, an idea in this case, that they could adopt as well. And when they hear that, they're inspired by that. I mean, we talked about this again earlier this week at the retreat, the need for a herd. We all want to be around people that are moving higher in their life and in the way that we aspire to move higher. And there's something very comforting around knowing that we're quote unquote not the only one who's broken and needs to work on things, right? And then when somebody else is vulnerable enough to say, hey, this is a challenge that I'm having and here's how I'm working on it, which is what you did by changing your voicemail that way, people are inspired by that. They learn something from it. You have the opposite impact that you think you're going to have, which is that fear-based thought that they're going to somehow be pissed at me. So what if you took the shoebox and you took some pictures of your kids coloring it and you took a picture of your phone in it? And what if you posted that on social media and just said, hey, I just wanted to share something with you that I'm doing. One of the things that I have as a commitment to myself and to my family is to be more present when I get home. From 5:30 at night till 7:30 at night every day, I come home and I put my phone in the shoebox. We put the lid on it. I play with my kids, and then I check my phone, after the kids have been tucked into bed and I've read them a story at 7:30 or 8 and see if there's anything urgent for me to attend to. I guarantee you, you'll get a lot of likes and you'll get a lot of comments from a post like that. People will be inspired by it because it's the very thing that they know they need to work on too. So putting it out there into the world could be a really cool thing too.
Yeah, I like that. I was actually listening to Jay Dacey's podcast with you this morning, and I loved his letter. I was like, and now saying about that, I was like, oh, I could highlight the box in that letter, or hey, he did the comment of, if you know what this quote is, like, hey, if you want the shoebox or you want the materials, like I could send a shoebox with coloring and stuff like that to clients too.
That's an interesting idea. You have to, I'd probably be less concerned about the cost and more concerned about the labor. You'd have to outsource that to somebody on your team. But I find it really hard to believe that somebody's not coming back and working with you again, and that interest rates are not going to be as much of a factor if you're doing that with your database. Like you talk about reciprocity. I mean, you're touching somebody on a much deeper level by giving them a tool to connect more deeply with their children. They're going to definitely love you for that. And you're right. The Jay Dacey, the simplicity of Jay Dacey's approach to writing that letter to his database every month is just really, really powerful. Let's talk about your relationship with your wife coming out of this most recent retreat. I know that you have a personal goal, if you don't mind me sharing this in a public way, to have a deeper connection with your wife. What would you like to share about some of your intention behind that?
Yeah. Again, I look at this as like four levels, right? The first level was with the kids. Second was with me. And then, I guess 3 levels. And then the third was, I'm trying to get better in all aspects of life. And as me and my wife have an amazing relationship and we've been married for over 7 years, I just want it to be strengthened. Right. And we talk about like probably everybody, hey, have date nights, go quarterly, once away, talk, all these kind of things. Like, some of the times when you have new kids, you're 2 ships passing in the night. Right. We have 2 newborns. We're just doing this, and the relationship isn't as strong as it could be. And so, my main goal is to strengthen that, to have like what I called it, an obnoxious, form of love, right? When you see those people, you're like, oh God, you know, and so with that was I changed the, my screensaver to a picture of me and her at a wedding. She looks beautiful in it, and then get to a place where we're having date night once a week. And I sent her this long text message being like, this is what I really want with us. This is what I want with you. Can you take some time to, how I can better support you, what you need from me, and how we can, be married for 50 years and live this unrelentless marriage, if you will. And we talked the night I got home just about date nights and like what we could do. And we were talking about golfing in the evenings. She loves tennis, so playing tennis or even going to lunch. And I'm like, we can plan this and do this, but let's schedule it. Let's get it on the books now. Mm-hmm. And, really like commit to being with her and being the fullest, versions of ourselves for each other. Right. Because again, like, I feel like, a lot of what I hear from people is that they want to help other people, but they never help themselves. And I'm like, how are you going to be the best version of yourself for everybody else right? Or how are you going to help everyone else if you can't be the best version of yourself? And I feel like, how can we show our daughters the best life, all these kind of things, if we're not, have the best marriage or the best version of marriage that we can possibly have? And again, I say this isn't, our marriage is not broken. It's not bad. It's just, I want a deeper relationship with her, and I want something that I can truly look at and truly go on a daily basis. And with her, that's really gives me fulfillment in that for her and me. And so understanding who she is, who I am, and then, the nuances in that.
When you think about it, I've been pondering this for quite some time. I mean, I'm currently designing curriculum for the couples retreat that we're doing September in Italy, which will be an amazing experience. And one of the things I was thinking about the other day was, gosh, this person that we call our partner, our spouse, is probably the only person in our lifetime that we choose to spend the rest of our life with. And when you put it in that frame, it's a very interesting frame, right? It's like, you don't choose your parents, you don't choose your siblings. Yes, you choose your best friends. In some cases, maybe they'll be in your life for the rest of your life, but in many cases, we come and go. But a marital relationship is the one relationship where we make a commitment to that person. It's you. You are the one that I want to take my last breath with, or you take your last breath with me. And yet at the same time, because it is such a long relationship, and because it does come with so many responsibilities and it goes through and migrates its way through so many chapters in one's life, we can tend to very easily stop investing in it and stop evolving it. I mean, my goodness, you're a young man, you've been married for 7 years. Where you're going to be when you're 70 is a very different version of yourself that you are right now. And where she'll be when she's 70 is very different as well. And you'll go through chapters, and it's very, it can be very challenging to go through those chapters and to stay close through them and not divert and go in a different direction. So the investment on a consistent basis of revisiting it and connecting and evolving and growing together is so important. So I put this out. You probably saw this back in January, I believe it was, something that Liz and I have adopted that I think has been so beautiful for our relationship, is that we have made it a point to every morning when we are together, which is not 100% of the time due to the long-term or the long-distance nature of a relationship, but when we are together, which is 60% of the time, we go on a walk every morning. And it could be 10 minutes if that's all we've got time for, or it could be an hour and a half. But going on a walk is a really interesting experience, because when we're in movement, a lot of the energy comes up, and we don't even know what we're going to talk about. We don't have an agenda for the walk, but we always end up talking about meaningful things. And it's a very connecting time for us. And the more that we can build in mechanisms to support connection, I think the better off we are in terms of giving ourselves a really high probability of success with a long-term relationship. So when it comes to you setting the intentionality behind date night, like the advice, if I could, or the coaching that if I could, if you haven't already done this, is to establish one sacred day a week that's just non-negotiable. The risk we run if we say, hey, we're going to go out on a date on Fridays, is that, we'll always put something else in front of that if life takes over. But what's very different is saying, okay, we're going to go on a date every Friday. And here are the rules of the game. We are going to hire a sitter that is going to every single Friday, unless we cancel, is going to show up at 5 o'clock at night at our house, and they're going to be there until 10 o'clock. And we'll pay them a month in advance. So we really lock that in. Just here's this month's worth of babysitting, right? So it makes it a little bit more difficult, a little bit of friction to flake out on it. And then you can play a little game with it, which is like you rotate every other week. You get to choose this week what you guys do on Friday night. Next week, she gets to choose. Make it a little bit fun. What kind of food do you want to eat? Do you want to go see a movie? Do you want to go to a concert? Do you want to go watch a play? Do you want to go for a walk after dinner in the city? Whatever the case may be. But if you lock it in and you just know that Friday is our night, and we always have coverage, you give yourself a much greater opportunity to be successful in following through with it.
Yeah. Yeah, we talked about, what day we could do it and what that would look like. And one thing I would just say to it is like, I want to get really curious with her. Like, what really fills her up? What does she need from me? Right? Because I think some of the times I'm like, well, why is she not meeting me here? Why is she not doing this? And that has nothing to do with her. It's more to do with me and I guess improper expectations and these kind of things. And so like, I'm super excited and feel rejuvenated to just kind of get back to like the start of the relationship a little bit. And not that we need it, right? Like, but I want to get curious of who she is. She's an amazing mom. She does everything for the kids. She's an amazing partner. And like if I'm really doing all this work on myself, like, and with the kid, like, what is our relationship? What does our life look like when we fully go into this? And, I know she's super excited for it and I am. And, honestly, like, it's just like, I'm ready to go on date night now and like start exploring these different things that we can do and get out of our comfort zone. I think, where each week someone picks an activity or something like that. It doesn't have to be dinner and drinks. It can be other things too.
Yeah, you can. One thing that you can do, we've done this on couples retreats in the past that we've designed, is you could, on a date night that you're planning, you could come up with like 3 stem sentences that you put into an envelope, put the same 3 in your envelope, put the same 3 in hers, and go for a walk, and you hand her the envelope and you say, let's take these out and let's share with each other our answers to these stems. And it could be something like, it could be a lot of things, and you can chat GPT it, and I'm sure the chat will come up with a lot more than Tim GPT will. But an example would be like, when I first met you, I knew that I loved you when ... Okay. Or the thing that I've never shared with you because I've been a little shy about it is ... Get creative with it, but stimulate some like deeper, curious, to your point, conversation that can bring you and your partner closer together. And I mean, these are things that like I said, Liz and I do these types of things all the time. And I think it's been really powerful in building a friendship, because at the end of the day, I mean, my goodness, like if we're choosing to spend the rest of our life with someone, and then we're going to bring two children into the world, in your case, together, and that's a common bond that we have, is that we're the only 2 parents to these 2 beautiful children. Boy, it sure makes sense for you to have that person as your best friend. And sometimes, because of life's complexity, we need to build mechanisms to fortify that friendship. So, boy, I've sure enjoyed this conversation with you, bro. Is there anything else that you would like to share that maybe we haven't covered?
I mean, the last thing I would say, honestly, like I am so grateful for you. Really,
Mm.
truly have changed my life.
Thank you.
And Julie and Scott, right? But like, if anybody on this call, I think you're full for the next one is like, you really need to seriously consider L360 and the signature program. Like I can't go into like how fulfilled I am as a human, as a dad, as a husband, and my life has completely changed in all positive ways because of what you've given me and what you've taught me and helped me. And I'm truly grateful. Like from the bottom of my heart, like so appreciative of everything that you've helped me with.
Mm. Thank you for that. And I took that in, and I'm really happy to hear that it's had that kind of an influence on you. And I'm grateful for your friendship and all the laughs that we've had together. And looking forward to 6 days together at the end of November, or excuse me, end of June, right after Father's Day, playing a little golf together in North Carolina. We're going to have a ton of fun together. Really appreciate you, bro. And thank you for the wisdom that you brought to this conversation.
Of course, and hopefully someone on in Masters can come up with Tim GPT here, because I'd love to see what that looks like.
They probably have an F-bomb or two in the responses, I'm sure. Thanks so much, everybody, for listening in. I hope that you've enjoyed this episode of the 360 Experience with Casey Granston, and I hope that you have a very successful week. Take care, everyone.